teenagers I could ever imagine. And we had the greatest people, and they made close friends with one another, and that was what I appreciated the most, looking at you and seeing how much you loved each other, and for 30 years. And each year I would think, well, we got those really great people are graduating. What are we going to do? New people came in, and they were just as good, and it was just wonderful. And I've heard that old thing, make sure you do what you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life. Well, that was me. I never had to work a day in my life because of you people. Monday was my favorite day of the week. I couldn't wait to get back here. And I always felt that you people and the theater gave me much more than I ever gave it. But I wanted to share some things with you that you wouldn't necessarily know about. I was reading about, a person did an article about winning football coaches. And they said they found this out talking to these people who had been winning for 20 years. He said the thing we found out about them is they couldn't remember the games that they won. They'd think about them and go, oh, yeah, who were we playing at that time? He said, because we had worked so hard to be ready, we were ready. And we won almost all of those games, but not all of them. They remembered every single game they lost. I mean, they remember who was playing what in what position, and they remembered everything about them because that was a shock. If you run a theater program that plays up to 10 nights for 30 years, and you work hard to have everything go right, well, because of you, everything went right. Almost. Well, we had a couple of occasions here that I want to share with you. We were just West Side Story. I had never been to a play in my life till I was like 20 years old. We couldn't afford it. There was nowhere to go. But I went to movies all the time. And that was 2 movies every week, and all the stuff that go along with it, and really good cartoons and all that. And so by the time I was 11 years old, I was sitting in movie theaters going, that's creative, that's good. Or, this is junk, I'm getting out of here. And so, we learned how to do fights from movies. And you know, movies make everything look really real, of course. And then they go back and try it again and haul away the injured and do it again. And so we were working on fights on the stage, and we have really good looking fights. They were really good. We worked hard on that type of thing, going right there and just blink your hand as you go by them, and you miss them, and they can't see it, or the person that's going to hit you turns their back to the audience, blocking the audience, and they can't see you do this as you get it. And I swear you're sitting out there, gosh, that looks real. And it fall over like this. I hope it didn't really hit him. Well, we had a fight going on here between the Sharks and the Jets, and one of the players we had was the defensive tackle on our football team. And he would get himself amped up when it came time to do that fight. And the actor was saying, take it easy. You're coming at me 90 miles an hour, and they've learned all this thing to do to make it look vicious and nobody gets hurt. And they would turn their head as it went by. One night, the head of the Jets forgot to turn his head, and this kid just came up out of there just breathing fire and went wham and got him right here with his fist and knocked him almost out. He just staggered back. And of course, the way we run things in this theater is when a scene is over, don't let go of your audience. Have the curtain close and have a person walk out right through the closing curtain and continue the next scene. So I don't want them looking at their programs. Keep their eyes on the stage and what we're doing. So out comes this head of the Jets, and he stands there and he's got the song, and by this time it's opened up and the blood is pouring down, dripping off his chin. When you're a Jet, you're a jumping up and running around, and got a butterfly thing to pull at clothes and stop him, because he had quite a few scenes yet. And here's the thing about that made me remember it especially. We had a drama teacher from another school visiting that night, and she came and said, well, you know, that's a good show, you did a good job, but you know, in that fight, get rid of that blood, you can tell it's fake.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
That was Jim Maples.
Yeah.
Jim Maples, and he got 3 or 4
Oh,
stitches.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Well, I couldn't remember the name.
Tom Murray's mom worked at the ER, and you guys took him down to get him stitched up
Yep.
immediately afterwards. I remember that
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
I was working box office.
Yeah. Then we did The Miracle Worker, and we had 2 really good actresses, and they have a fight where the what's the name of the girl that can't read?
Helen Keller.
Helen Keller's at the table, and there's the miracle worker sitting there at this table trying to get her to control, and there was a pitcher of water. And every night we have that scene where she goes wham, and I mean she doesn't just do this, she goes wham and bam, that hits her face and goes out to the side, and then after that the miracle worker has to get up, walk through the closing curtain, and have a scene with her father out here. Well, one night she went 1 inch farther than she did any other night.
Oh no.
And it was a glass water holder, and it caught her right here in the chin and in the lip, and bam! Like, I didn't see that happen. It happened so quickly, but she comes out here, and what a trooper. She goes right on with her scene, and the father is looking at her, and I'm looking at his eyes because it's opening up in front of him, and he can see it, but most of the audience can't see it. And I was coming, I did, you know, what? And she did that whole scene all the way through it, and I thought, man, I was so impressed. And she went around back and they put something on her, and she did the whole rest of the show. That's impressive. And one other time, we had Conrad Birdie. He had to meet out here, and her boyfriend, who hated him, has come out, and so the boyfriend comes running out and says, well, give him some. We gave him a meat cleaver. And he comes out with his cleaver looking for Conrad Birdie, and he was never going to use that, but he saw him there, and he went, BAM! And Birdie was taught how to handle that, and he didn't. And what happened is there's about 3 people all standing around him. They all grabbed hold of him because they saw his knees go and his eyes glaze over, and he was standing up completely out cold. And they just moved him around. They told me about it later. Oh man, that was something. One thing that I didn't tell all of the students, I almost didn't get here. This was a perfect thing for me, and I couldn't get here. I was teaching at Pepperdrive School for 6 years, and I really loved my students, the 8th grade students there, and they were going on to high school, and I was thinking, you know, I think I'm going to move on to high school, so some of them maybe be in one of my classes or something, because I'll miss them so much. And so the principal said, well, we hate to see you go, but I'll write you a letter that is on fire. And so they wrote me a letter, and I went to the high school that they were going to, and I talked to the guy, and evidently interviews were my strength. So I went to the interview and I talked to the guy. He practically climbed over the the desk. He said, "You're just the guy we need." He said, "You're going to be part of this group." And I would have had no theater. Anything I was going to do would have to be done in a classroom. But I had a job and I was in high school. And he shook my hand and said, "You're with us this year. I can't wait for you to get started." Earlier, I had joined a teachers organization because I was not impressed with the one we had. They didn't seem to be willing to do anything for teachers. It was top-down kind of stuff. You know, you can't do that. You're a teacher. Now, shut up and do your job. You're an employee. So we were getting both of those things. So we joined this thing called the American Federation of Teachers. And I didn't know. It's just, that's another group. Okay, so there were 7 of us. And there was a woman there teaching kindergarten. I told a couple of you here this. But she couldn't connect with the office. There was no connection. There was no walkie-talkie. There was nothing. And she couldn't send her kids. They were too little. And she couldn't leave them. And she was alone teaching. No help of any kind. And so I thought, well, I'll go talk to the head of the district and see. Everything will be fine. I'll be polite and nice and everything will work out. What I didn't know is there was a war going on between the district and my principal. They really didn't like him because when he had PTA meetings, you couldn't get in the room. There were so many parents would show up. Boy, did he have support. Well, that didn't make him too popular with the school district. So I got to the end of it and said, well, I just want to make sure that I can quote you. I got to go back and talk to my group, which I think he thought I had 50 guys with brass knuckles or something. And I found out that they considered us to be about 20 feet left of communists. And that's how things were, especially at that time. And I haven't seen it develop here in California at all since then. Well, I didn't know anything about that. Boy, was I naive. So I'll sit there and I'll listen for an hour and a half. That guy at the district hammered me over and over again. Here are the reasons why it's impossible to get a helper for her. And he would list off that like 17 reasons. I'm taking notes. I'm just sitting, I didn't say a word. And at the end of the whole thing, we got to the end and said, okay, well, thank you for even talking to me. I'm going to go back. I want to make sure I'm quoting you exactly. You would like to be able to do something for her, but here are the reasons why you can't possibly do it. There's no way to get help for her. I didn't say that. You haven't said anything else for the last hour. And he said, never mind, we'll take care of it. I'd like you out of my office. Oh, okay. So I went out and got my car. And before I could get back to school, because this was after hours, they had a person sent over there that had signed up on paper and was working as her helper. And my principal came out, who's been fighting tooth and nail with it. What did you say to this guy? Did you threaten him? What did you? I just sat there. And well, okay. There's a reason to me telling you that story. I've been hired. Now I'm in high school. You're with us. I can't wait for you to get back here. I'm going to have paperwork for you next time I see you. Ring, ring. Mr. Bonsworth, yeah. The head of the district called up and said, don't hire you under any circumstances. And he had power with these people. And he said, he's a troublemaker. And the guy says, I'm sorry, Barry, we don't have any job for you here. Well, I had quit, and I had no job, and it was summer, and I had no way to make a living. And so I had gone to I went to another school. Same thing happened. It's all school, you know, I won't say what it was. And the guy said, this is the best interview I've had in 15 years. He came over and grabbed my hand and says, I don't have an opening. I will make one for you. You're going to join he was all jazzed up about it. I thought, oh, wow, this is easier than I thought. And you're hired. Okay. Then he left on vacation and told no one. about his decision. So after a while, I'm not hearing anything. So I call the district and I say, well, what room am I going to be in? What are you going to have me teaching? He says, I don't, you must have misunderstood. We have no job for you. You have no job in this district. Good luck. Go look somewhere else. And they couldn't reach him. He couldn't be reached. So the second job, boom, fell through at the last moment. Okay, well then San Diego City I talked to called and he said, you haven't signed, have you? And I said, no. It says, okay, you wanted to teach drama, right? Our drama teacher who's been here for 8 years or 10 years and has set up a real good program, she said she's not coming back in the fall. So you're going to plug that hole. You're going in there, we can't wait, and there's a nice big theater for you and all of that. So, wow, how about that? So 3 days before school starts, Mr. Bosworth, she changed her mind. She's coming back for another year. I don't have that drama job for you, but we're going to make you our speech coach. Well, my college waived my speech requirements because I was an actor. And so I never had to take any speech class ever. You're going to run the debate team. Oh, what's a debate? I had no idea what debate teams were or how they worked. And so for the first year, I stayed with them for 1 year, and I learned more than anybody else did. And then they said, Bosworth, we just got a notice that you've done a terrific job here. You're one of our better teachers we have. And oh, well, good, I'm glad to hear that. But next year, we're having a slower student enrollment than we expected. And I've been told by the district I have to dump one teacher. And the teachers have gotten together 2 years ago and set up a deal and said, last one in, first out. They said, so I'm going to have to release you. And there's 25 people I would release before you, but no. So I'm unemployed again. I get a phone call from a friend of mine. He says, Barry, have you taken a job yet? Well, I thought so. I'm going to have to go substitute or something. And he said, well, out here, I'm out in the East County at a school. And I said, well, what school is that? He says, it's called Granite Hills High School. I said, I've never heard of it. And he said, yeah, well, he needs to hire 2 people. One for the new theater they had just built, this thing, and one to start a speech program for our kids that didn't have one. Well, Buck was there with me, the people that remember him, and he was the other guy. And they asked us, which would you like, Bosworth, which would you like? And I thought, anything. Like 4 days, I've got to have some employment. I said, well, if you put me doing speech, I'll do that. But I never would have come here. Never would have had anything to do with this. I would have got 100% into that. And Buck said, well, I really like theater. And the principal said, I don't know what to do. So he reaches in his pocket, this really happened, and takes out a quarter. And he flips it. This is for the theater job. Call it, Bosworth. Bam! Like that. And I thought everybody calls heads. I was going to take either one because I would at least be employed. And he said, well, it looks like you're going to have to run the theater. You think you can handle that? And I said, I think so. And I've got some ideas. And that's how I got here. Flip a coin for crying out loud. All those wonderful people that I knew over all those years because of flip of a coin. So that was just a stroke of luck that got me here. And I was the first one in this new little theater here. And all they had were these, you see these round lights here, short ones, the other cheap ones, and that's all they had. They had that and nothing else, but oh man, I've got lighting, you know, and I've got a stage. We can do some things here. And over the years, we would take whatever money we could get, and we actually started selling season tickets to high school plays, if you can imagine that. And people were buying them. And so we had some money coming in, and so I started buying these things one at a time. I would get maybe 1, 2 at the most I could afford, and we'd put them up. And so we had these ellipsoidals. Now with the ellipsoidals, those people, I don't know how much you all know about this lighting thing, but ellipsoidals cut off the stage black here and brilliantly lit right there. And suddenly your stage can be broken down into 3 different stages with using ellipsoidals. And so we had scenes going on out here, over here in the corner, and then light up, and there's another scene ready to go over there. Don't let the audience look at their programs. Once you get a hold of them, hold on to them. Because the best movies I've ever seen, because I was a movie fan, I got a popcorn. I couldn't even look at my popcorn. They had me. This is a good movie. And my popcorn was cold by the end of it. I didn't eat any of it. I couldn't reach in there and do anything because the movie was so good. And they never let go of me. What we can do with theater, that's what I want to do. See to it we never let go of the audience. Catch them and hold them. And so we used everything. That's really curtain closed and a person walking through it and all that. And there were spots where we had to change the set. So a couple of you would come out here and do a reprise of the dance and song in front of the curtain. And you just keep them looking, keep them smiling and nodding while they're moving stuff around. And those poor people that did set changes, and many of you were involved in that, you couldn't touch that curtain. Because when you're sitting out here, you see, oh God, I hate that. So we worked, that's what we had me on the microphone all over here. Try it again. Reset the scene and let's have that changed again. Well, we worked again and again and again. And finally, they were able to change the set and not hit the curtain. And a girl would walk across stage in her heels, which were the thick heels, and all right, I don't know who you are, but you took exactly 11 steps across that stage. And so I said, all right, now stop, come back. But make sure you can't hear your own feet touching the ground. Keep practicing until you can do that. And they got good at it. And they were doing so. I didn't hear that at that time. But we had turned the whole set around. And it became backstage of that set, of that play. What was that?
Noise is off.
Oh, God. And we had to turn that thing around. And they didn't see it or hear it, and it was magic to them, because the curtain would open, and there's a whole new set there. And when it was a big dance number coming up, there was maybe nobody on stage. You were all behind the curtains. You had 4 feet to hide yourself, and all at once, 40 people are on the stage. Where to go? And you're doing a big dance number because we got really good people teaching you how to do that. And it was magic. And I thought, that's the magic of theater. Thank God we can do that. And when we couldn't do it, they would hit one of the curtains. I got the microphone. I can see La Mesa. And they had to go back and reset that and do it again and again. And then we had to bring an entire pirate ship on stage.
Oh, yeah.
We had our helper, the man that helped us, made a magnificent pirate ship.
Gorgeous.
And we had holes cut in the bottom of it, so the guys were walking out, but you couldn't see that. And they came on stage singing and holding on to the rat lines and all that. And that big ship turned around on stage. And people who wrote up our show said, that show began when that ship came on stage. That was so impressive.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get it out the door, it's too
No.
tall, so we had to hinge it, so everything hinged down, get it through that 80-inch door, push it back up again, and stay hidden behind a 3-foot wing here. And don't let the point of it come out. And they didn't. Was anybody here in that? Oh, good. All right, so you remember. You guys of the Pirates were fantastic. They came singing out there, and the audience just, where did they come from? And it sailed around here and turned, and we had a spot that represented land here. And we had one guy in the front, and they're all singing, and he's on the nose of the boat, and the boat turns around and goes, bam, right into that. He goes head over land. Land ho! That was so much fun, and you guys made it fun. So most things went right, and actually, it's hard for me to remember those moments because there wasn't any problem. Everything went smooth as silk, and I put you guys in charge. That was something I decided in the very beginning. I'm going to hand the show over to them. And if they screw it up, they're going to do it. I have a feeling they won't. And I went back and sat back here, and I could watch the audience while the audience was watching the show. And that was more darn fun, I want to tell you, to watch them. Because then would come, here's the thing. Here would come the big line. This is the big one. They're going to fall on the floor screaming with laughter. And they'd hit that line, and the audience would go, and I'd think, well, we missed that. How did we do it? And then we hit another line, everybody falling on the floor. I didn't think that was that funny. And I remember someone telling me, don't you ever think an audience that you're going to please your audience by doing what you like. Mm-hmm. Just because you like it doesn't mean they will like it. Yeah. And I kept remembering that. Watching Bosworth, don't do that. And then the other thing that I did, and I'll be done here. Thank you for listening. I had an attitude because as a student, I went out to Santa Ana Junior College. I played a lead in Santa Ana High School because the director was our Sunday school teacher. And she hired me, and she put me there in that Phileas Fogg, Around the World in 80 Days, and I found out that the costume I'm wearing was what they used in the movie. Oh, wow. Dean's costume, and we did that show. And then when I left there, what do I do now? I've graduated. Now, some of you may know what I'm talking about. The day you graduated, I'm out of here. I'm free. Free. I don't know how to do anything. So what are you going to do? I'm going to junior college. Why? For something to do. So I went to junior college, and my friend, who was just on fire to be in their next play, he said, "You got to come and try out." And so I'm like, I don't know. Junior college is probably like here for me. And he said, "Well, give it a try anyway." And I thought, well, no, I don't think so. And he tried out, and then what the heck? I'll go in, and I tried out. And it was the male animal, Thurber's The Male Animal. And I tried out, and I thought, well, that was the best I could do, but I don't think I'm going to try that again. And I was in English class, and he's sitting behind me. He's kicking me in the back. Bosworth, Barry, what? What are you doing? And he said, "Congratulations." He didn't make it. And I said, "You didn't go over and look at the board that has all the parts and the people playing them?" "No, it never entered my head to even go by and look." I'm in it? Seriously? I'm in that play? You got the lead! What? So I went over there, and so I was there. So, and then my good friends in our church group came down to Point Loma to go to college. I had managed to save $40 after working all summer. I had $40 to my name because I just lived with my mother, and I can't go. Well, come on down and look around the campus. And okay, so I took the ride down there, and they said, well, try it anyway. So I said, well, I'd like to go to college here. I really would, but I don't have any money, and I don't have any way of getting money. And they said, well, what about the National Defense Loan? What? Yes, the federal government will pay you to go to college. And then you have to pay it back, but not until you've been out for a year. 3% interest. I'll take it! So I went to the college out there, which was then called Cal Western, and it's now sold to a different church and a different group. And I was in a place where they had not that many students. They were desperately trying to get students to come. They had their teachers living on campus, because this woman who had built that thing out there had brought trees from all over the world. Madam Tingley was her name. And she had built these houses all over these, and the new professors could live in those houses. So they lived right on campus. Well, because of that, they came to the plays. and I had Barry, what? Because I was trying out for the plays, and there wasn't much competition. I mean, there was only so many guys there. And so I was lucky. I got a lot of leading parts. And he'd come over and say, shake my hand. I'm trying to think, who is this? This is a professor. And then I tried to figure out where they were. And they came that close for asking for an autograph. And here I was, somebody thinking, I don't even belong here. This is, I had no confidence, really. I really didn't, even after all of that. And so finally, they sold that. I left there, and I tried getting to work here. And I was hired by all those places. And at the day that school was started, they called me and told me that job isn't available for you anymore. Why? I said, not my fault. They called me from the district. And so he said, well, come on out here. And somebody flipped a coin. And that's how it got that way. And that's how I got to meet you.
Yay.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank you for all you've done for me, because I honestly believe you did more for me than I ever did for you. And for people to come up and say, you changed my life. What? And any teachers had it happen. What did I say or do that did that?
Yeah.
And it's because the teachers, this is my big thing always, teachers are looking here. You're teaching here. You're going to accomplish this deed. That's your job. And this is where I'm going to have the impact. And you find out that the people that you taught hardly remember any of that stuff. But over here, something happened that changed their life. And it was often just you saying hello to them. Just smiling, talking to them, making them feel welcome in the classroom. And that is what counted. And as a teacher, I didn't know that. I really didn't know that. And I've run into other teachers who said, well, I've had the same experience. They're telling me what a wonderful job I did for them, and they're thinking, really? I don't remember doing such a wonderful job, but it worked. And so I started telling the other drama teachers, they had a committee where, and I was elected president of it. I'm supposed to talk to these other drama teachers. and give them ideas and all that sort of thing. And I said, listen, every day you are affecting people that you have no idea about. When you meet them at the door, when you walk by, just say something to them. Just smile at them. That's what matters to them. Not what we're writing on the board, not what we're doing. They're going to forget most of that. But the way you behave, and I wanted to tell you something, teachers, you're already doing it. You don't know it. You already are making friends for life, and you have no idea. Thank you for listening.